national economy. Mr. Chair, I would have more to say, but I see you are impatient and colleagues are impatient to ask me questions. I'm very pleased to be here. Je vous remercie, mesdames et messieurs, de m'avoir invité aujourd'hui. Et je vous cède la parole.
Thank you very much for inviting me today.
Minute over, so we'll go to 1:07 today, back on the clock. So MP Bouchard, no worries that you'll get your rounds in. So with that, we'll move on to the 6-minute round with MP Soroka kicking it off.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Minister, for coming today. I'll be talking more about the moonshot programs, and I'm quite impressed that we're going to go down that road. I'll start off with an easy one, and just remember to keep your answers as short as my questions then, please. Do you think funding in Canada for researchers and universities is acceptable?
I think that I would say, dear colleague first, I think we can always do better. I am happy that you're asking on the moonshot, because I think that whether you talk about the Lunar Gateway or the Artemis mission or, for example, the James Webb Telescope, I think we're punching above our weight, and we need to continue to show excellence, and we need to put the funding behind, because obviously you need to look at that on a comparative basis, what our G7 partners are doing. We have been doing a lot, I would say, and I'm coming to the end. We've invested, 14 billion since 2016, but if your question, can we do more? Certainly, and are we looking at that? Definitely.
Okay. The other day in the Globe and Mail, Stephen Chase had an article that our top universities are collaborating with vital research projects with the Chinese military scientists at the National University of Defense Technology, known as NUDT. The NUDT reports to Chinese Communist Party's Central Military Commission. One collaboration was on quantum cryptology, on how laser interruptions can aid in eavesdropping. Don't you think this kind of research poses a risk to Canada's national security?
I would say I'm glad that you're asking the question. I wish the journalists would have asked me the question. I would say very openly to all Canadians, first of all, this is concerning. It is unacceptable. And secondly, I expect, and I've made my voice very clear to university, that I expect them to do more when it comes to sensitive research and IP. We have already adopted guidelines on research security. We'll have the Security Research Center to help them. And I can tell you today, as a piece of news, that I'm looking to impose additional requirements when it comes to strengthening research security in Canada, because to your point, we need to be eyes wide open, and we need to ensure that sensitive research and our IP is adequately protected. And when it comes to national security, I think you know me by now, there's no compromise. So there'll be new guidelines being issued very shortly.
Okay. And also in that article, the NUDT was blacklisted by the United States in 2015 because Washington believes it involves or possesses significant risk. This is the same year this Liberal government was elected, and for 8 years you haven't blacklisted the NUDT, like the U.S. For 8 years, this Liberal government hasn't done anything about national security against the NUDT. Why not?
I would say, with the utmost respect to a colleague, which I admire in this House of Commons, you've heard me before. I'm not going to take lessons from the Conservatives when it comes to national security or science, sir, with respect. I am the minister. You're looking at the minister who imposed the strictest conditions on research security, and I will continue to do so, because as a former Foreign Affairs Minister, I don't think there's many people who understand better what we need to do to protect our research and our IP, and I'm very committed. But I would think when it comes to national security, sir, it's not about a Liberal or whatever. It's about us as parliamentarians doing what's right for Canada.
That really didn't answer my question, though, because you talked a lot about how we should be doing more and we're going to be doing more, but nothing's really seemed to be being done. Why not?
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
MP Housen?
Monsieur le Président, ça fait assez longtemps qu'on a...
We've been waiting for the minister for a long time to appear before us. We worked hard with Mr. Blanchet-Joncan to get 2 very important motions before this committee for discussion, French language production and the moonshot programs. And now the questions are being focused on national security and not on the subject that we're here to study today. Could we at least discuss the subjects that we have on the agenda for today?
A line of questioning in order, because we are talking science and we're talking moonshot and the importance of why would a country do a large scientific investment without protecting it. I would rule the line of questioning in order, and I'll pass the floor back to Soroka for 2 minutes and 50 seconds.
Okay, thank you for that. Minister, then I'll go on to a different question then.
You want me to answer that question, sir?
Sure.
Okay. Well, I would take perhaps objection to that, because if you look in the budget 2022, we invested $159.6 million for the implementation of the National Security Guidelines for Research Partnerships. So not only we put guidelines, I would say, sir, but we've even put money to back these guidelines to help universities. And I'm having discussions with the granting councils and with the U15, which are the 15 largest universities in Canada. Sir, there's no one more committed to protecting our IP and research, and I'm sure you are the same. This is not a partisan issue. This is about protecting our country, because we want to make sure that if we want to be best in class in the G7 and in the world, we need to have proper guidelines, and we're going to help the universities to do that.
Okay, because that's one of my next questions. It seems like the universities are kind of floundering. They're not certain where the federal government stands. They don't have the money or financial means to continue doing this research, so they do look to organizations such as the NUDT to get research done. Now, why are they having to create their own policies or safety protocols in place when the federal government isn't doing that for them?
Well, I think I would say, based on my discussions, the U15 and others have been asking us to provide them the guidelines. I think what they expect from their federal government, and I'm sure you appreciate this is a shared jurisdiction with the province, and there's a lot of people in the ecosystem. But you're going to see in the next guidelines we're going to be issuing, we're going to be enjoining universities across Canada to adopt similar rules to protect sensitive research and IP, and I think this is in the best interest of Canada. And I can tell you, I am, with my officials, you have the best people here in Canada who are dealing with research and innovation, truly committed to protect our scientists, our researchers. But in order to do that, what they're asking from us, the guidelines we put in place last time, sir, were really a coordinated approach. Now, with the recent event that you mentioned, we're going to do more, because I am not happy, and it's unacceptable, and I've been saying that very clearly to them. So we'll come out with additional guidelines, and I think that's what they want, because that's why we created also the Research Security Bureau, because you know what? In reality, it's sometimes complex for them to understand that. So they need to work with our intelligence agency. We need to work with them. This is I would say, a Team Canada effort to do what's best for the country.
Thank you kindly for those answers. Now moving on to Member Lauzon from the Liberals for 6 minutes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and welcome, Minister. Thank you. Like I am, you're a great defender of the French language. You're from Quebec. We're fortunate to have a minister from Quebec, but also from a very francophone region of Quebec. Can you tell me what government initiatives have supported and promoted research? You've got a team here with you today to represent research. But to talk about French, can you tell us, for example, what we've done to eliminate barriers? What have we done for researchers, French-speaking researchers? Well, thank you very much for the question. And as you said, I'm from Shawinigan, which and I did the bulk of my studies in French. I understand the importance of French in the study of science. And there's some good news. Now, my colleagues can answer as well, but we heard that 25% of all people on the granting council's boards are French-speaking, and many of the applications are accepted, and so the rate is higher than we might have expected in the past. The reality is that the granting councils are subjected to the Official Languages Act, and I want to ensure, Mr. Lauzon, and do ensure that we promote all initiatives. It's like I said in my opening remarks. There are various initiatives where we seek out Francophones, not only in urban areas, but also in rural areas. Our programs, as you know, focus on young people because we know that they're the talent of the future. If we want to prosper in the future, we need to focus on the talented young people here. And we're looking at what's being done elsewhere as well. We're seeing that the same thing is happening in Germany, Italy. We're looking at the language of publication, and English is taking over a large portion of that. This is happening in other countries as well, in other G7 countries. So we need to put in place additional steps to deal with that. And it's a concern for us because when we talk about diversity, we have linguistic diversity, and the research councils, even if they are at these councils, they understand the importance of French and French programming, the importance of translating French documents and documents into French. And this is something that not only covered by policies, but we also have funding. And we can ask Mr. Stewart to tell us what they've been doing at the National Research Council of Canada. Well, I'd like to come back to that if we have some time at the end. But I'd like to take a few minutes also to talk about what you did last January by launching the National Quantic Strategy with $370 million in investments as part of that study. Dr. MacDonald, who was a Nobel Prize winner, talked about the importance of Canada's role in quantic research. We had a lot of questions on that. Do you think that this strategy is something that would be a moonshot project? Absolutely. And I can tell you that when I talk to my colleagues in the Department of Commerce in the United States, they realize that Canada has a lead when it comes to quantics, when we talk about cybersecurity, AI. And this is important because all of our other strategies for aerospace, for example, for other areas in batteries, biopharmaceuticals, and I could continue with a host of other examples. But in the economy of the 21st century, that will be supported by AI, by quantics, by cybersecurity. I think that strategy is greatly appreciated in Canada, but also abroad. I'll give you an example. There are companies in Toronto. They're the only ones with a quantic computer in the world, and it focuses on chemistry and batteries. And that company in Toronto, when you talk about large auto companies across the world, they all know the company from Toronto because they say with their help, we can save 3 years with respect to research on batteries of the future. So that's the kind of project that we have. We've got Leeway in Sherbrooke. It's another important company doing important work. We're in constant discussions with our colleagues in Washington to focus on what we can do because I talked about the Albany-Bromont corridor, north-south. I want to launch an educational corridor for research and the building of semiconductors, and it's gaining traction. I think there's a lot of